Yeah, I'm still confused. Do I start the fake pattern? Oh, hi. Welcome again to Keith Explains. Tonight we got a heck of a topic for you. Because normally I kind of, I just get really bothered about the topic. And roughly Tuesday afternoon I decide, well, I got to think of something to talk about. And then I'll go see a movie or something. But no, this time we planned. We planned ahead of time. We planned weeks and weeks ahead of time for the topic for tonight's show, just to bring the best entertainment dollar to you. Topic of tonight's show, it's puppetry of the penis. I'm going to say that again because a lot of you are just sitting in your houses with your mouths open going, what did he just say? No, tonight's topic, puppetry of the penis. Now here's what's cool. I can say the word penis on Access Television. And I can say the word testicle on Access Television. And I can say the word scrotum, although not too often. Apparently I have to ration that word, because that last one's kind of on the edge of what you can say. But penis it's a medical word. It's just penis, penises, or penis apparently is the other plural of penis. I looked that up because before the show I always look stuff up on the internet. I'll talk about that later. But this time, puppetry of the penis. It's this play. It's theater. It's highbrow entertainment, which you can buy a ticket for and you can go watch. Like they had TV commercials. They were in a real theater and everything. In this case, I went and saw the Puppetry of the Penis show with Loretta because we were going somewhere for her birthday and we had the choice. Do we go see the Canadian show with the acrobats, the Cirque du Soleil? Or do we go see the penis show? I guess you know what we went and saw. I mean, we kind of had a little talk about it. We were like, well, we could see Cirque du Soleil. It's $100 a ticket. And it's really always the same show. It's people up on the stage bending themselves in ways that you cannot bend, but they can. And in this case, Puppetry of the Penis was people up on the stage bending themselves in ways that one of the two of us is not capable of, and Loretta doesn't have the equipment for. So we kind of think, and I'm like, well, we go see these shows, and Loretta's like, well, I don't know, let's think about it. And I'm like, okay, think about it. And one day we finally decided, and we were like, well, okay, we'll buy the tickets. And I go to a little website, little Ticketmaster, little bastard Ticketmaster website, because they're horrible people. It's $8 a ticket for giving me a piece of paper. That's a markup. And I go to the little website, and it's, well, you can get tickets in row N or row G. And I'm thinking row N would obviously be the 14th row. Row G would be like the 8th row. So the 8th row would be closer, but the 8th row is off to the side, whereas the row N is in the middle. And normally you like to sit in the middle for a theater. And here I'm sitting in my office. I'm kind of conflicted. Do I want to get row N or row G? Where's the better view going to be? And then what's weirder, why do I care about which view is better? Think about what I'm going for. Eventually we went for the tickets in row N. So we were 14 rows back, kind of in the middle. Yeah. So we get to the theater. It's, like I said, an interesting show. It's about penises. Now, it's penises. There are a lot of different ways you can say penis. I looked some of them up. You could say Buster McThunderstick. You could say Captain Kirk. Or Little Elvis, or lots of other things. I mean, there's just huge numbers of synonyms, which we're not going to use, because that would make this a bad show. Whereas this is an above-the-board, totally normal show about puppetry of the penis, which, like I said, I attended up in Redwood City like a week and a half ago. So we buy the tickets. It's $100 for 2 tickets with the darn Ticketmaster fee and everything else. And we drive up there, show's at like 8. So we went up and saw my brother beforehand and then drove down to the theater. And we get there, and it's in Redwood City. Redwood City is not known for its theaters. I don't know what Redwood City is known for, but theaters ain't one of the things. So we kind of park somewhere, and then we're walking to the theater, and we're like, is there a theater around here? Because it's just downtown. But yeah, far off, there's a theater, and we get there. And It's kind of weird because out in front of the theater, you think Puppetry the Penis, this is the kind of show that's going to sell out. No, it wasn't sold out. They still had tickets available. They would have been further back, so it's a good thing I paid the $16 Ticketmaster ransom. Otherwise, I would have been 3 rows further back and wouldn't have seen a darn thing. Because I'd have just bought the tickets there. Just here's $80, give me 2 tickets, please. And they only took cash for some reason, which made it seem kind of seedy. Made me kind of wonder what kind of show have we gotten ourselves in for, but we already knew what kind of show we'd gotten ourselves in for. It was that kind of show. So we buy a book, because we walk in the lobby and they're always hawking merchandise, because Lord knows we're not paying enough at the door. They need to make extra money, and Loretta wants a book. We buy a book. It's a book about the Puppetry the Penis show called, here's a great subtitle, The Ancient Australian Art of Genital Origami. And I'll come back to the book later, but let me just tell you, it's filled with pictures of naked men doing things. So we sit down. It's a weird theater. They've apparently pulled all the seats on the lower floor out, and they've replaced them with folding chairs. The padded folding chairs, but still folding chairs. So it's not terribly comfortable. And there's a woman comedian at the beginning, and she's yakking away the way women comedians do, and she's on for like half an hour, and she's telling jokes, and she's trying to be, topical and local and stuff. She makes fun of Redwood City a couple times, although we know she actually has no idea what goes on in Redwood City because she's from San Francisco or something. And it's not a big theater. It's got a little stage up front. They got some fake little columns and little Greek Latin words on them because they're trying to be highbrow. And it's Greek because everyone knows the Greeks were huge in the naked things. Because remember the Olympics? I mean, the Olympics used to be like an all-naked event. I mean, I'm thinking NBC could make even more money broadcasting the Olympics if it was all naked. I mean, that women's synchronized swimming, that'd draw a heck of a crowd. Right now, no one watches it. Mark my words, someday in the future, all naked Olympics. Heck, they probably have naked Olympics. I bet if you go to nakedolympics.com, there is a naked Olympics somewhere. I don't know why, but there is. So what do we got here? See, I make notes. I care about this show. I care so much that I make notes beforehand. So like I said, we're there for the Naked Penis show. Half an hour after the comedian, she goes away, thankfully, because I was tired of her. And then these 2 guys come out. Now, 2 guys in capes. 2 guys with Australian accents in capes. And they start making banter. And I realized all of a sudden what kind of show this was. This was going to be a 2 guys trying to be witty on stage show. And not witty in the real spur of the moment sense, kind of like, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and I don't remember any of the rest of them, but they were the Rat Pack. They could be on stage and do exactly the same show every night, and it would sound spontaneous. This sounded kind of rehearsed. Because this was rehearsed, because it's a show. They've been doing this show for like 5 years now, all over the place. And it's just the 2 of them up on stage in capes for about 3 minutes. Then they fling the capes off and they're naked. And this is the point when the mind suddenly goes, there are naked people on stage. I mean, you've been expecting it, because you know what you signed up for when you bought the tickets, but it hits the brain like a big splash of cold water, naked people on stage, and for a while you're just thinking, I'm staring at a naked man on stage, and there, if I turn my head this way, there's another naked man on stage, and I can turn, oh yeah, first one's still naked. Yeah, second one's still naked too. Okay, there's the first one naked. Okay, I'm just going to stare at the first one. He's the guy talking for a while. Okay, and that goes on for a couple minutes. I don't remember what they were talking about, but I do remember they warmed up. And by warmed up, what I mean is, well, they stretched things. Things that my mother taught me shouldn't be stretched, or touched, or ever referred to in polite company. But they did not. They stretched them and stretched. Now, interestingly, for me, after a couple minutes, the mind just adapts to the weirdness that it finds itself in. I'm in a room with a lot of people, and we all paid $40 to see someone naked on stage doing that. And so it's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, whatever, I'll listen, okay. And what am I listening to? It's witty banter about the penis. Or as they said, it's pretty much an hour of dick jokes, which it was. And while they were doing the witty banter and the dick jokes, they were making things. Now, not like you're thinking, not like, a balloon animal dog, because that would have really impressed me. But no, just little things like, look, it's a big thumb. And then they'd pause for the applause and the laughter, because there was always laughter, because after those first 3 minutes, you realized if you don't laugh at this dumb stuff, you wasted your money. Whereas if you do laugh at it, well, at least you got $40 worth of entertainment and you got something you can talk about on your TV show. And they're up on stage. For them, it's performance art. They keep calling it art. Like, this is the installation. Like they're a curator. No, they're two guys up on stage. They got, what else do they have? I wrote a list. Well, I didn't get a list, I have the book. So like, they'd wrap it around their hand and they'd go, that's the wristwatch. And they'd stretch it down. That's the Eiffel Tower. And then they'd do this thing called the hamburger, which involved pain. Pain is what I want to say. Because they'd kind of take the meaty bits, and they'd wrap them around, and they'd twist, and it would, if you kind of scrunched your eyes and thought about it really hard, you'd go, well, that could vaguely look like a hamburger. I mean, it does, and it looks like a guy who's done something very, very painful to himself. But, Now up on stage, like I mentioned, we're in row 13. But since they know those of us in row 13 really can't see the stage that well, they have a huge projection television in the middle of the stage behind the two guys. And there's a camera guy up front who is zooming back and forth on each installation so that we won't miss any of the fun. And I realized about 10 minutes into the show that I was no longer thinking about entirely the weird thing these guys were doing. And I was concentrating on, well, I've got a TV show, and this is kind of a TV show. Well, there's a camera, and they're filming things. And so I start to think, well, I should really have two cameramen, because right now the cameraman keeps having to go back and forth, and the focus keeps changing. And it's distracting to me in the audience when the camera in the background just kind of pivots and swirls when I was in the middle of looking at something. And I'm going to use the word interesting here, but well, okay, it was interesting. I'll admit it was interesting. I mean, I wouldn't get a picture like that hanging on my wall at home, but for a minute or so, doesn't that hurt? And so that, the camera was weird, and the sound just kept dropping out. So you'd miss half the witty banter every once in a while, which just made it surreal, because you wouldn't know exactly when to laugh and when not to laugh. And I already talked about these. It's weird sitting in pretty much a folding chair in a theater, because that ain't the way it should be. And all around me, there's the audience. There's a lot of women in the audience. A lot of groups of women in the audience. Like a large group, all women. Sometimes there's a large group of all men. Rest of the audience is pairs. Men, woman, men, woman, men, woman, men, woman. Because Puppetry the Penis, great date show. Or in surfing the internet, I learned it's great for bachelorette parties. And just, I'm assuming the big groups of guys were gay. I mean, the group next to us, they were wearing leather, and they had, Harley tattoos on, and they were talking about recipes. So we're pretty sure they were gay. Over on this side, there was a large group of women, and they were kind of inebriated, so I'm assuming they were a bachelorette party or something. Maybe a bunch of women at work. And then right next to us, another pair, date. And then I was kind of thinking of this. I was like, well, I should mock the people that are on a date. Except in a sense, I'm there on a date. It's me and Loretta. And here's the weirdest one. Like 3 or 4 minutes before the show's supposed to start, this really, really pregnant woman walks down the aisle, kind of over here, sits in about the 4th row. Really pregnant. By really pregnant, I mean, just looking uncomfortable and leaning back, with her hands, kind of supporting her and walking really slow and kind of waddling back and forth. And I'm like, why in the world, if you were that uncomfortable and pregnant, would you come to Puppetry the Penis? Because if you think about it, a penis is what got you that way. Okay? I would think there's no way you'd get her anywhere near Redwood City that night. But, well, there she is. So like I said, it's the two of them. They're up on stage. They're doing the witty scripted banner. Midway through the show, they bring up an audience member. And of course, they're up on stage. They're naked. They've been bantering. And so they think, well, we'll just call out and get someone to come up. Except they don't just go, who wants to come up on stage? They're like, who's here? And then the crowd goes, roar! I'm like, anyone here having a birthday? And roar! Anyone here at a bachelorette party? And there's a couple people, roar! Where are my gay brothers? Roar! Well, they didn't say that. The comedian said that because the two guys up on stage, dubious sexuality. You never know. Because the whole time, they're in what we would call an unexcited state. Because in an excited state, there are really only 2 installations you can do. There's the flagpole, and there's the pointing sideways flagpole. I can't think of any others you could do. So anyway, so they kind of do the call out. They eventually pick a nice bachelorette, nice woman who's going to get married. They're going to bring her up on stage because they do this every night. We know this because in the commercials, we see a woman up on stage, in the TV commercials, doing exactly what they called this woman up, which is, they bring her up on the stage and then they do some installation, which is kind of embarrassing and gets her really near something, a penis, let's say, an upside down penis, legs in the air, just one of those things that if that woman's mother had ever had a warning for her, it would be, and the night before you get married, don't go see a show and stand behind a naked man on stage who's upside down doing things. Installations, art installations. But now she's up there. They bring her up there. It actually takes them a long time to bring her up there because they have to walk her kind of around the theater because you can't get up on one side of the stage. And she's drunk. Did I mention that they probably should have picked someone nowhere near as schnonkered as this poor woman was? Because she's kind of having trouble walking around the theater, and she gets up there, and she's drunk enough that she's really not paying attention to the fact that she's on stage with 2 naked men. And so they take a picture of her, and I'm assuming that, they'll give the picture to one of the bridesmaids, and she'll be blackmailing this woman for the rest of her life with it. Or 7 years until she gets divorced. Who knows? One or the others. And the show goes on. Show's an hour long, about. I kind of wondered beforehand how long is this show going to be, and I thought, well, how many art installations can you do with a penis? And I thought, well, 15 minutes is kind of a short show. But they managed to do an hour. They probably could have done more, although I think they would have been repeating themselves. Because it turns out there are only so many things you can do with it. There are a lot of amazing things, because they would do things in the audience. And I could look around, and you could tell that there were really 2 expressions on the faces of the people in the audience. All the men in the audience had this expression on. And that expression is the, doesn't that hurt? Or, that must hurt. Or, good Lord, must that hurt? Whereas the women in the audience all had this expression on, which is, and that expression is, I never knew it stretched that much. Or, good Lord, is that stretchy? Or, wow, can you do a lot of things I've never seen before done with that? See, the guys didn't think that because, well, we as men, we have access to the equipment. We know what you can do with it. We just choose not to do those things with it. Because, like I said, that must hurt a lot. Stretchy, stretchy. So the show, you know, they got to finish the show with the big finish. Always got to have a big finish for a show. So their big finish involved stretching things so that it was vaguely in the shape of, I'm trying to think of the word here. Got a sailboard, got a windsurfing board. That's what I'm going to call it. I might be wrong, but stretching it like that, and then the other guy with a fan, and the first guy's on roller skates, and they're blowing them across the stage. Although I think they had a rope or something, because there's no way a fan got it that much. Okay, so and that's it. Big finish. They don't come out afterwards, even though you applaud for an encore, which I was personally kind of thankful for, because after an hour, I'd seen enough of the ancient Australian art of genital origami, as they called it. Yeah, right. Okay, so ancient Australian art of genital origami pretty much means it's something that they thought up when they were drunk. Because you know that there was alcohol and a bar bet involved in this the first time. I mean, I understand why they're doing it now. They're doing it now because people are paying $40 a seat to see it, okay? But what's the mental leap that gets you from people are willing to pay $40 to see this to, hey, I wonder if people would pay anything to see this. See, you got to get from that, you know, that second one, which would have come first, to that first one, which would have come second. And I'm just assuming that they were, one of them was just really, really drunk and in a bar, and they were like, hey, I bet I can make a puppy dog out of my penis. And the first guy's like, I bet you $5 you can't. And the first guy's like, oh, yeah, I can. And then, and there it was. So in this case, the two Australian guys, you look this up because I do research. Simon Morley and David Friend were the two guys that thought of doing this. Simon apparently first did a calendar in Australia, 1996. Title of the calendar, The Ancient Australian Art of Genital Origami, which was just, 12 pictures in a calendar. And I'm thinking, wow. Because just think of the printer he took that to the first time. Just, hi, I'd like 1,000 of these, please. And their printer would be like, good Lord, you don't think you're going to sell these, do you? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sell a lot of them. I'm going to sell 1,000. No. And then, after that, apparently they had the bright idea, well, we'll do a stage show. So in 1998, they do a stage show in Australia somewhere. And then they tour Australia, which sounds hard, although apparently in Australia, people only live within like 3 miles of the coast. The entire interior of Australia is empty. So, they got in a little VW minibus and they started somewhere and they just drove around the edge of Australia for a year. And, they'd pull up into town and go, we're doing Puppetry the Penis. And then people would go, yeah, right. Except they do it in an Australian accent. I can't do Australian accents. So you got to live with what I can do. So I drove around Australia and did it for a year. And then someone saw it and said, you should go to Edinburgh, which I think is in Scotland. I'm going to claim it's in Scotland. Big comedy festival. They went there. Apparently sold out shows because people in Britain don't see enough of the penis. So they're willing to pay to go see it. Did really well there. They ran on Broadway for a while. And then they did a national tour. The National Puppetry the Penis in America tour. It was up in San Francisco for like 4 or 5 months. They kept having commercials for it on TV, and then it'd be, it's the best show you've ever seen. It's Puppetry the Penis. And you'd see the two guys up on stage, and they'd be being kind of witty. They couldn't show anything on TV except a big black box in front of the interesting bits. And they'd, and they'd cut to the audience, and everyone would be laughing. They'd show the woman up on stage, standing between the man's legs, just like the Bachelorette did. Loretta and I went up and saw it in Redwood City. And I kind of had this weird feeling when we were driving up there to see it. And when we got up to Redwood City, my weird feeling was it came to pass. And the weird feeling I had was, well, good Lord, it was in San Francisco for like 3 or 4 months, but now it's just in Redwood City for 2 days. I mean, that's a little weird. And then while I was driving up there, it occurred to me, well, this is a traveling show. You know, it does 2 days here, and then they put it in the bus, and they drive to the next city, and they do 3 or 4 days there, and then they drive to the next city, and it's the traveling Puppetry the Penis show. Kind of like, you know, you'd go see Cats in New York, or you could wait for Cats to come to the Flint Center. And Cats in New York has like 90 kitties, and Cats at the Flint Center has like 4 kitties. But it's kind of the same show. The cats are singing. Not as many, but they're singing. But so we get there, and we sit down, and the 2 guys come out and flip off the capes, and they zoom in the cameras, and I realize these aren't the 2 guys in the commercial. These are 2 different guys. I think in our case they were named Daniel and Lincoln. Okay? But they're 2 different guys from the commercial, which suddenly made me realize they've hired people to do the Puppetry the Penis show. I mean, at least they hired people that were Australian, or that had Australian accents, or that were British, or Scottish, or whatever. But they kind of sounded like the Australians. They could plausibly claim to be Australian, but they're not the 2 Australian guys who came up with this concept. These are essentially actors, which means there were auditions. And I went and found the audition notice for the Puppetry the Penis show, okay? But people went somewhere and went, I'd like to be in Puppetry the Penis because I believe the penis is important. And can you please flip the channel, please put to page 7 and show us what you can do? And page 7, you're like, okay, very good, we'll get back to you. I mean, this implies that at some point in time, that, you know, a phone went ring, ring, and then, you know, a kind of older Australian woman picked up the phone, and what she heard was, you know, Mom, I got a job. I'm left penis. I mean, someone, somewhere was like, I'm sorry, your penis is very nice, but your right testicle isn't round enough. Not for this show. Okay? They franchised Puppetry the Penis. This means that this original idea of, well, we're 2 really drunk guys and we're going to make some money and good Lord, it's actually working. Okay? They hired sober people to do this. What's worse? There are 5 touring companies worldwide doing Puppetry the Penis right now. There's the original, and then there's 4 others. That means there's 8 guys who went to college, whose parents are thinking, well, someday maybe he'll grow up to be a doctor. But no, he didn't grow up to be a doctor. He's a guy that, for the closing thing, does the windsurfing board and gets blown off stage with a fan. They must be so proud. Well, that's pretty much it for the show, I think. It's been lovely. A lot of people said, Keith, you can't do a show on Puppetry the Penis. And I said, well, yes, I can. And they said, Keith, what'll you do? And I thought, well, what does it matter? No one watches the show anyway. This way, they'll be not watching a show with me talking about the word penis. And I'm guessing this is the most times the word penis has been said on this channel in a long time. Hopefully. See you guys again 2 weeks from now. Have a lovely night and enjoy.